Welcome back to Dubbzi Bricks for another Onyx Cinder update, and in this update we're going to be attempting to get the rear engines and wings attached to the vessel and hopefully rotating. And just to show you what we're dealing with here, they're over 1.8 kilos per wing and two engines on the back here. So that's 300 grams heavier than if you bought the 80 TE Lego set. And we haven't even finished with these engines yet. We've still got a section on the front of the engine, on the back of the engine, and there's a whole load more work that needs going on to the wing. So these beasts are going to be over 2 kilos per engine and wing set on the back here. Now, I'm almost certainly going to have to redesign the engine mounts on the back here. These little tunnels here, which the engines rotate within, they're going to need to be a lot deeper just to take the strain of the engines there. And I'm also going to have to come up with some technique that's going to stop it from popping apart. So I think I'm going to have to bring them inside a fair bit. Gear wise, I think I'm almost certainly going to have to go down the worm gear route if I do have the gears in here. Somebody suggested that a little while ago, but my only concern is how much you've got to rotate a cog to get the worm gear to turn enough to rotate the engine 90 degrees is quite a lot. So I might just have it so you can rotate them by hand, but we'll certainly experiment with all of this to see what we can come up with. Somebody did suggest in the last update, why don't I connect the two wings together in the center? Now I do want to have it so I can remove the wings, and this could work very well in for both purposes. By attaching them together, it's going to stop each one sagging. If I build it properly, there'll be no problem at all, and it'll work really well. I've got an idea of a way of connecting them in the center where I can easily separate them, which means I can remove the engines for transporting them around. So there's a lot of positives to it. The negative is, on the back of the Onyx Cinder, you do have a boarding ramp and then a passageway that leads through to the rest of the vessel. Obviously, I would lose that passageway. I could do it the same as on the Millennium Falcon, the UCS one, where you just put a sticker on there to represent the corridor when it goes through. So it might be worth trading off the corridor just so I can have some better looking engines on the back of the ship. Anyway, without further ado, let's start experimenting with the engine mounts. And here we have our revised engine mounts, and it's coming along nicely. It's got so much strength in it. You can twist it in any direction and it's just not snapping at all. And it's because we've got the snot bricks on here, so we're plating that way. The bricks are going that way, so you've got the studs going in both directions. And once we put the Technic beams on here as well, it's all going to be really firm. And there's going to be a lot of building around this section as well, just to help keep it all in place once we get to that stage. Now, I will be swapping over some of these 1x1 bricks and plates here and putting some snot bricks in there. That way I can plate over the top of this and get the details on there, as you see in this image on screen at the moment. So just trying to think a little bit further ahead than I normally do on there. Now the wings, when I slide one in here, it does still droop. And it's purely due to the fact you've got 2 kilos of weight hanging off of here and nothing in here to help keep it down. Now I will join the two engines together in the centre. It is going to be the best way to go about it. It's a shame I'm going to be losing the corridor through from the back of the vessel, but I think it's more important to have the engines and wings looking straight on the vessel, or as straight as possible, as opposed to having a corridor that you're not really going to spend that much time looking at. So that's what we will do. Now the other thing we then need to do by joining the wings together is work out, is there still a way that I can get a mechanism to rotate this, either using cogs or a lift arm, worm gears, anything like that. So yeah, plenty of experimenting to do. But anyway, let's make those amendments first, and then we'll cross that bridge a little bit later. And I'm really pleased with how this is coming along. We've managed to get these wing mounts all surrounded by Technic bricks. Now the whole section that we got there was really nice and strong. It's resting on some tiles down the bottom here, which is 4 studs wide, and that's going to stop that from sagging down. And all of this around it is so strong. We've got studs going in all different directions to help keep it nice and tightly together. There's been another bonus with doing it this way as well. I believe that the entrance ramp will actually come up, or I can do it so it comes up around about here. The engine will connect, or the wings and engines will connect across here, so it'll be just behind it. So I can actually have it, a corridor comes out and down from the back of the ship there. Not sure if it's entirely screen accurate, but the limited images that I can find online and on the TV show, I think this is going to look and work out wow anyway. So all I need to do now is continue to build up the framework on here, and then once I've done that, we're going to connect look at the way that I'm going to connect the engines together and then have it so I can rotate it. At the moment, I'm struggling to visualize something due to the technique that I'm using, but we'll certainly give it a try. And here we have the two engines all connected together going through the centre of the fuselage here. And there are some good points and there are some very bad points. The first good point is this rotates nicely. So that works really well. So that part we're happy with. The problem we've got is when I pick this up, the engines sag so much. They're almost going down by about 10 degrees. And it's because of how heavy they are. It's way too much strain on the section in the centre here. Now, looking at the engines, to me, I feel like they're too far apart, possibly by about 8 studs. So I'm going to shrink the centre part. So I'll be doing it from this part here. We'll just take these Technic beams off and plates down the centre, put smaller ones in, join it back together, and then hopefully that will help. Now, the problem is that there's not a great deal of connection points in here. It would be nice if I could make it a nice solid channel through there with plates going in all directions so that it takes the strain both ways. But it's very hard to do that when you're then threading it through the centre sections just here. So what I'm considering doing is I might go back to the drawing board with this and start a completely new connection point from the actual wing here and then build both the wings and join them together. What I'll then do is then build the fuselage around the wings. So I think that's the only thing I can do with this. So it's going to take a lot more experimenting with different techniques. If that doesn't work, what I'm going to have to do is make it so these engines just stay in one position and it will be in the flight mode like they're in at the moment, which is really frustrating. It would have been absolutely fantastic to have had these so that they rotated, but I don't know whether it's actually physically possible to do so, or certainly not with my skill set anyway. So yeah, we'll just carry on experimenting for a little bit longer. But I've spent all day doing this, and I thought, yeah, this looks really good. And then as soon as I picked it up, it was bending, and yeah, we failed, unfortunately. But if first you don't succeed, try and try again. I've looked at this option to start with, which has got 3 Technic bricks. Then I've used these Technic lift arms to connect it together, almost like a bridge effect. And this is super strong and would do a very good job. The 2 levels of plate are crucial, because if I take one off there and you do this, it pops up. The only downside to this is when the wings rotate, this has got a lot of flex and there's no way that I can use this style. The next style I came up with was this here, and this is using bricks and brackets inside. So if I peel these 2 plates off at the end here, you can see we've got the brackets either side, so the plates helping to keep that together. Now this is a really strong design. You can bend it in any direction and it's taking the strain perfectly. The problem you have with this is it won't be able to rotate, so I'd have to have the wings in a fixed position on the build, which is something I don't really want to do. But the thing is, this build has to look good. So I need to make sure the wings look as accurate as possible. And if it means that I have a non-rotating engine, then I will go down that route. This is a little bit thicker than I would have ideally liked for that part of the wing, but I'm sure I can lose it in the design. But yeah, we just need to carry on experimenting and see if there's any other way that I can get any more strength in that centre beam there. And here we have another prototype here, and this is one that I can actually experiment with straight away without having to wait for parts to come in. And it's using a very similar technique to this one here. I've got some 2x2 bricks and I put brackets all the way around them. So it's continuous brackets the whole length. We then got some 3 levels of plates, which are the 8x2 plates, and they're overlapped by 4 studs. And then we'll be putting tiles all the way down all the 4 edges as well. Now this is super strong. I can try and bend it and there's barely any movement at all on there. Now due to the size of this actually fits into that quite nicely. There's only about half a plate of wiggle room on there, so it can move from side to side. However, once it's gone all the way through, I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. So it does rotate. The only problem is I don't know whether or not I'm going to be able to get a way of actually rotating it, but we'll just have to have a play with that. And here we have our prototype. I've made a longer version of it and I've just tried bending it, and there's barely any bend at all, which is really good. So when I slide this inside of the engine mount just here, This rotates so smoothly, it's brilliant. Now, hopefully I'll be able to attach something to this here somehow. Not sure how yet. And if I can, then we may be able to have it so it rotates on some form of mechanism. I can't see it being on a cog. It'll be a lever, I would have thought, but that'll be good enough. Whether or not we can then attach that lever to a lever at the front to rotate the front ones, I'm not sure. At the moment, I just want to get the engines and wings attached and not sagging. I do need to extend it a little bit more, as I want the support structures to come to at least these engine sections just here. And then hopefully we'll be able to see it without it sagging, and then I can start building the wings off. These tiles won't need to be on this part here. We can carry on building off of that. I just hope that the width of this isn't too big for the wings, but again, it might pay to make it look a little bit less screen accurate on that particular part, just so I can have this nice and strong and having rotating engines. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to change the colour of these plates over just in case any of them do show up once we finish building. And then I'll start attaching the engines to the end of these. So let's do that. And I'll check back in once we've done so. And we come up with a technique here for keeping the centre structure here in place so the wings won't move from side to side. And I've just built this section on, and again, it's using more of the bracket pieces just to give it a little bit extra strength. And that tucks right up against this wing mount just here. The next one will be up there, so it's wedged in between it. And then this is just stopping it. It's from sliding up and down. It's wedged in there, but still rotates nicely. So yeah, nice to find a solution. Now we've got to do is put all of this back together and hope there's enough strength in the build. And out of all of the mock building that I've done on the channel, this has got to be one of the most satisfying feelings to get all four of these engines sitting there and not sagging. They've finally found a solution to this. Downside, there's no cogs inside, so it's not going to be, you're not going to be able to change the angle using a lever or anything like that. However, they do rotate, so that is good. This goes around nice and smoothly. The only downside at the moment is there's more weight at the front of the engines than the back, so it does want to tilt forward just a little bit. So yeah, we will need to find out a way of sorting that problem out. Hopefully, once I've built the wings on and done the back of the engines, there'll be enough weight at the back there to help counteract the front side of it. But yeah, it's so nice to see that we've got a technique here that works. Now, this section here will obviously be coming this way. That's just pointing down so I can stand it up. So all we can do now is carry on building the fuselage out from this. But yeah, this is so satisfying, as I said, just to be able to find a solution like this. It took a while, but we got there. And there we have the rear engines all attached to the fuselage, and there's plenty of strength in this. I just lifted this up by this end here and had it so that was pointing towards the ground and nothing was moving. It was all really strong, so that's all good. One thing I have been sort of like measuring over and over again are the engines here, how far apart they need to be from each other, and I believe I've got it right. With no images like blueprints, it's very hard to get the measurements exactly correct, so I'm just doing it by what I believe looks right. I've got a drawing over here which I've measured and measured again, but because it's at a slight angle, you can't obviously get it exactly right. But what I'm going to concentrate on now is building a display stand for this to make building a little bit easier. It'd be nice to have this off of the table. The display stand will be more towards the back, as that's where all of the weight's going to be. And originally I was going to have the undercarriage down on here, the landing gear down. However, I don't think it's going to be able to take the weight of this. This is already very, very heavy. So I thought, let's just go for a display stand. It's a lot simpler that way. Anyway, let's get those black bricks and plates out and let's start building that display stand and then see how it comes out. And here we have the fuselage all attached to the display stand. Took a couple of attempts to get the display stand where I needed it to be, purely down to the weight of the rear of the vessel there, but yeah, got there eventually. I had it further down this end so that I could have the rear hatch opening on there. However, it was bending the chassis of the craft so much that I just needed to push it back. So it's a very good chance that we won't be having an opening. Originally, I wanted it so that when you came up, you came up through this part just here into the center of the ship. But yeah, that's got to be sacrificed in order to get the exterior look how I want it to be. So happy to do that. But here is the playset version, just to give you an idea of the difference in size between the two. And yeah, really happy of how this has come along in this update. Just getting those engines rotating has been so satisfying. In the next update, I want to concentrate on getting the front engines all attached to it as well. It is a shame that I can't have some mechanism that's going to rotate all of them together, but yeah, at least they do rotate and they're not sagging at the moment. Obviously we've still got to attach the wings, which may make a bit of a difference to that, but yeah, getting the wings all built on there as well is going to be a big job in the coming weeks, and then we can start putting all of the details around the engine mounts there, or where it's joining the two engines together. And I've still got to work on the front and the rear of the engines as well. There's a lot more weight to go on with that part as well. But anyway, there it is. That's all we have time for. I hope you've enjoyed the update. If you have, please remember to give us a big thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content on the channel. And if you know anybody else you think would be interested in building the Onyx Cinder in Lego, if you could share the channel with them, it'd be much appreciated. Anyway, thanks for popping on by. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.